Hi, everyone. Welcome again to one of our roundtables, one of the pimvendors.com roundtables, this time on data pools and syndication. I am Stefan Spijkers. I'm one of the co-founders of Pimvendors, and I'm very glad to welcome you all here. Please get yourself a digital seat, find yourself a seat, and grab maybe that final drop of water or your final cup of coffee, because we have a 60-minute conversation with 4 very interesting experts in the field of data pools and product information syndication. I'm very excited to host all these experts, and I'm also very glad that we have already have again found Glyn Davis available as the moderator of today's session. Glyn, I'm going to hand over the floor to you. You are the founder of retailinsider.com. You also host our roundtables, and you have been with us for quite some roundtables already. This is your area of expertise, so take it away.
Great, many thanks, Stefan. Actually, I also own a brewery, and we're changing the agenda. We're now going to talk about the brewing industry. Right. Okay, before you please don't leave. Right. Yeah, next time. That's for another week. Anyway, many thanks, Stefan, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining this roundtable today. Before I ask each of our panel members just to tell us a little bit about themselves, I'll just give a very brief bit of background on myself. As Stefan referenced, I run a business called Retail Insider, which is a website of opinions and insights on the retail sector, and with a specific focus on technology and digital developments. And we also produce a variety of reports and host events, roundtable events, which quite often involve beer, sometimes involve wine. I'm also sometimes invited to chair roundtables, hence I find myself here today. So it's a great pleasure to be hosting this event this afternoon. I'm certainly hoping the next 45 minutes or so will be interesting for all of you as we dive into the topic of data pools and data syndication. And to help us navigate around this area, we've got a great panel in place. I'll ask each of the experts to very briefly introduce themselves before we move on to the Q&A, the roundtable. Now, let's start with Raul. Could you just tell us your name, Raul, and just a very brief background in terms of the organization you represent?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Glyn. And again, thanks for Pimvendors for hosting this event and inviting us. Well, my name is Raul Straathoff. I'm head of sales and marketing at Katana PIM. Katana PIM is a product information management system where we focus on brands and wholesalers that are going to be active on multiple online channels. So especially also working towards data pools to retrieving that information and synchronizing that as well. It's something that we come across a lot. So that's why I find it very interesting also to speak with the other panel members what their experience is. I'm also the one, if you hear a dog barking in the background or see a kid popping up in my screen, I'm working from home thanks to the lockdown that we're in. So already a small warning for everybody.
Great, thank you, Raul. Max, do you want to give us a little brief intro?
Yeah, hi. My name is Max Schrevelius. Well, I'm one of the founders of Connecting the Dots, and Connecting the Dots specializes in products and services surrounding the domain product information management. And by doing so, we encounter data pools with our customers lots and lots of times, and in lots of different scenarios. I'm probably able to bring some worthwhile information to this table today.
Great, thank you, Max. And Leah, do you want to give a brief intro?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Leah Desescale. I'm a senior solution engineer at Syndigo. So Syndigo, short terms, is a 360 tool that can create, ingest, manage, syndicate, enrich, and analyze the data. So we really have this 360 view around product data on both sides, brands and retailers. And for the purpose of today, I will be more the PIM syndication plus data pool tool because we are literally doing everything. So I hope I will bring some expertise here, and I'm pretty sure we will have a really good talk together today.
Great, thank you, Leah. And finally, Anna.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anne, and I'm the founder of Data. And before I was building this company, I had my own web shop in design furniture, which was taken over by Vonk, another huge retailer in the Netherlands. I experienced firsthand how difficult it can be to have data via several furniture brands and retype or copy paste this data into a PIM or in a webshop system or any other system. So together with a great team, we developed technology to automate this process. So if we're talking about structuring data or convert data or even enrich data for all kinds of systems in the furniture world, then Deco Data can be your partner. So looking forward to hear all your questions, and maybe we can meet each other someday also in a live session.
Great, thank you, Anna. And that is the panel. And you may well have noticed that I have cunningly avoided attempting to pronounce anybody's surnames, because I don't really fancy my chances with my English accent. Right, anyway, moving on. We've some specific topic areas that I'm hoping we'll cover off, but I'd then be equally happy if the conversation drifted off into other areas as we progress. The initial topics I've earmarked are just taking a brief outline at what data pools and the syndication market is all about. Then we'll say we'll look into how data pools work in practice, and then how to differentiate when everyone uses the same large incumbent data pools. And then finally, we'll round things off with just taking a look at future developments of data pools. So I will, it'll be a rather simple process. I'll be throwing a variety of questions at the panel, but obviously we'd like to get any input from any of you out there with any questions you've got. So please do type them into the chat or comments box, and I will then attempt to bring those into the conversation as we go along. So hopefully we'll cover off anybody's questions that you may have. Right, just moving on to the first area, taking that look at a brief outline of the market. So what exactly are data pools, and what is data syndication, and the link between those two? Who fancies diving in? I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to. Data pools. I've got pools in my head. I just can't avoid the diving in thingy, which we're going to get a little bit tedious if I use that all the time. Right, who fancies going first on this brief explanation of what we are actually looking at here today? Raoul, you're in my top left-hand corner. Do you want to just dive in there first?
I'm the first one. Yeah, no problem. Just a brief explanation. So data pools are basically big pools of data, where basically more brands and but also wholesalers basically combine their information into one big database and one big system, where it's easy to syndicate all the data to make sure it's all combined, where it's easier mostly for retailers also to grab that information. So it's going to be the more standardized information, like the length, the weight, the height, and the technical information like materials and stuff like that. That's, I think, where the basics is for data pools. But now with the e-commerce market exploding and there's more being asked of all the different systems, you see more and more changing also in the data pool landscape, where more and more also content, like enriched content, is being added more and more.
Right, okay. And I know we're definitely going to be looking in terms of how there's that differentiation point later of how you enrich the data beyond the basics of what are in some of the data pools.
Yeah,
yeah, sorry. Yeah.
If I may, I think one of the other, how do you say that? Typical things of a data pool or a data lake is that it's raw data. So that's different from, for example, a data warehouse. When you are talking about a data pool or a data lake, then the data is raw. And when you look in a way how we are offering it to our customers, the data can be used in a flexible way for any user that wants to use the data. So I think that is, of course, very important, that it's raw data that goes inside the pool. And then from there, of course, there are all kinds of solutions possible.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anna. Max, do you want to add your thoughts onto that?
Yeah, I think it's also worthwhile. If you look at the market today, you can say that the data pools are organized, most often in verticals. So, for example, like Anna represents a vertical in furniture, but at the same time, for example, you also have GS1, who started out specializing in food. But you have, for example, IceCat in electronics. You have, for example, TechDoc in automotive, and so on and so on. And there is, of course, a difference in the basic setup. So there's not one standard format that you could say, for example, hey, GS1 is offering food services and data which is all about food. And guess what? If I'm selling, for example, food, but also non-food for whatever reason, then I can simply tap into GS1 and also in, for example, IceCat, and it's a matching data format. It isn't. So be aware that per vertical, you might well have a situation that there's standard industry standard or an standard provided by a specific data pool.
Sorry, Max. So you could generally say that there are a lot of different data pools out there, and as a retailer, say, you may well be tapping into quite a few different data pools.
Yeah, but which means, for example, as for example, if I look at our services and products, we provide connecting the dots PIM, which means in connecting the dots PIM, we have all sorts of cartridges, which is a sort of connection. And so you have a cartridge for GS1, for example, you have one for TechDoc, and so on and so on. So this is basically, how the market works. So it's important to realize. Furthermore, you can also, when you look at data quality, there's quite some differences. This also ranges from the quality and completeness, for example, but also enrichment of content. You might well have, for example, data pools who specialize in lots of specifications for products and also making sure that they also apply high quality imagery. But at the same time, you can also have data pools or data lakes. Sometimes they also call themselves data lakes. Where they have more focus, for example, on master data. So it quite differs. You cannot say that one data pool is the same as the other one. So be aware.
So what's bigger than a pool or a lake? Max?
That's a good question, though. And I think as well, Max, it's not only about the data that is available via pool, because I fully agree. I mean, it is important, of course, what is available for each and every user of customer of these companies. But it's also the technology that is behind that and how the technology is integrated and all kinds of solutions that the different parties that are working with data pools or data lake and how they are structuring that, or as you mentioned already, the quality is assured, of course. Yeah, we agree.
I know we will cover in a second. We'll just take a look in terms of your thoughts on that integration between data pools into a PIM process. But just ahead of then, Leah, do you want to just move things on slightly by just giving us a rundown in terms of what your views in terms of the importance of data lakes stroke pools for brands, wholesalers and retailers?
Yeah, sure. So for me, data pools and data syndication, can you hear me? Yeah. Data pools and data syndication are quite different. The first one, data pools, or a common language between brands and retailers to actually exchange data, but those data will be limited. And that's what we mentioned before, more logistic data and some particular description of the product, but not additional data like images, enrichment, etc., etc. And when we are talking about data syndication, it's really a way for the trading partners on a global aspect, marketplaces, retailers, distributors, everything, to actually collect all of the data they need to share those information in front of the shoppers or B2B commerce. So both are crucial on both sides. Data pools are here to actually make the foundation of everything. But then you need to go further, only the data that a data pool can provide to you, using data syndication to actually have all of those data enrichment that we already talked about, and we will talk later. So both are crucial, but they need to be combined to actually provide the perfect consistency and accuracy of data across all of the different networks and brands plus retailer side. That's my idea here.
Thank you, Leah. Raoul, you got anything to add in terms of that, the importance of the role they play, whether that be for the brands or the wholesalers or the retailers? Because I guess there's an argument to say that retailers, I think we're referring to large retailers, very large retailers, that it might well be there is some benefit in directly linking up with the large brand owners as opposed to going through data pool.
Yeah, I think where it comes in mostly is where you see the difference now is with more data pools, especially in the niche market now popping up. is that brands are now taking more control on what kind of data they want out there, right? So they're taking control, but they still want that retailers to use that data to sell their products, right? So that's still one thing. And it's way easier to have one feed towards a data pool from a brand perspective, and then let the data pool distribute all the data to the different retailers. I think that's one of the big benefits of using with data pools, because you just centralize. Also for a brand, you centralize the data. You make it very easy to tap into for a lot of different retailers, and also for retailers, it's a lot easier if the data pools have their technique in order for themselves. So that's also one of the big questions to ask for every data pool. Is how far along are they on their on the technical side?
Okay, what's your experience, Anna, of that? Because I know you're obviously looking at it from the point of view of the data pool operator, I guess, rather than from a brand owner.
Yeah. Well, I agree with Raoul. I mean, for brands, of course, it's much more easier using a data pool, because they can have close contact with all their dealers and structure more the communication through that. Also, when there's a new collection online, but also for the retailer. I mean, there are retailers who are selling like over hundreds of different brands, and they need to have all the informations of different furniture brands. They receive all kinds of documents, sources, PDFs, Excels, whatsoever, about the great new collections, and how easy and fantastic it is to just, with a few clicks of a mouse, have access to the data you need. Make sure that it has the right conversions. I mean, each system has his own remarks, or how do you say that? There are some, I'm looking for the word voorwaarden, so maybe someone can help me here. Terms,
conditions.
yes, conditions, exactly. Each system has their own conditions. One system wants them in like centimeters, and another system needs millimeters. And for marketplaces, it can be like a comma or a dot. I mean, everything is possible. So when brands and retailers are using data pools, and then of course I completely agree with Raoul. I mean, the quality and the technique must be in place there. Then I think it will save a lot of time, and that is time, of course, that all the retailers and brands can spend on selling their unique position in the market. Because at the end of the day, I think, and especially now where we all are more focused on online and using as customers online as well, I think it's important that the differences between the companies is in their uniqueness. And I think, therefore, all the people that are having PIM systems come in place who can help these customers, of course.
Max, I was going to come to you next with another question. Do you want to just follow on, and I'll throw the question that I was going to give you?
Yeah. Well,
you have something for Anna initially, and then I'll.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting to see. For example, we are serving both retailers and brand owners, and you see that they use it quite differently when it comes to data pools. So the interest of brand owners is typically that they want to provide the data to the data portal in such a way that everybody who extracts the data from the data pool, uses their product data which was provided in order basically to support at least their brand identity, but also for example the information, the imagery, and all surrounding around their offer to make sure that for example they can provide that product data so a retailer can make a good sale. So a retailer, on the other hand, has other interests. They want to automatically enrich their products, and they're most of the time selling a lot. So it's definitely of help to extract that data which is available from a data pool. So all specifications are there. There's at least a standardized product imagery. But from there on, most of the time, you see that retailers also want to differentiate because they want to create unique content, which means, for example, they start in altering product descriptions, adding USPs, maybe also adding their own assets and studio photography. So that's basically.
Thanks, Max. We're definitely going to come on to some of that enrichment thing in the next little block. But on the level of complexity we've got out there in terms of the fact organizations, retailers, wholesalers may well be dealing with a few data pools. What's the point in terms of that integration between those various data pools into the PIM process? Because I'm assuming that can a PIM solution can make that whole process a whole lot easier for wholesalers and retailers. Raoul, do you want to? What's your view on that? Is that can that solve that issue in terms of dealing with quite a lot of different data pools?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think one of the big things now with more data pools coming up, I think especially for PIM vendors like we are, it's going to be important to at least integrate to the bigger data pools like the iSCADs, the GS1s, like EasyBase, ATIM. So that would be wise, especially if it's in the vertical that you're hunting in, because you make the life of your own client a lot easier. By just retrieving the data or even pushing the data once when you're dealing with a brand, as Max was saying. So I think it's important, but I think also in the future, I think a lot more system integrators are going to tap into that as well. So I see also a future where like the big system integrators are also tapping into the data pools, where you have a connection from the PIM into the system integrator, and they integrate into the ERP, the e-commerce platform. But also the different data pools and all the other systems that are going to pop up in the coming years. So I think they have a big role to play as well.
Right. No, thanks, Raoul. I guess you're pretty much in agreement, are you, with Raoul's view?
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree, and probably because it's the Syndigo positioning. We are a PIM syndication plus data pool system, so that's why we bring. So a little bit of background. Syndigo is a merge between 15 different companies. So each of those companies had a really unique expertise on product management on both sides, suppliers and retailers. We merged all of those companies because today we were missing a crucial, unique single source of truth. And that's the key word here, a unique single source of truth. We are all single source of truth, right? But how can I say to my client, you need to use this PIM plus this syndication tool to actually export those PIM data to your different endpoints, or you want to ingest all of type of data, so you need to use this provider, this other Excel spreadsheet, etc., etc. So we bring this idea to merge all of our different capabilities into a unique tool. Like that, it's data pool, syndication, PIM, all in one place. So the client doesn't have to create master data, complex format creation, exportation to make sure that the current and the appropriate attribute is well exported to the correct client. That's the main goal, and that's the angle that Syndigo has developed. We are seeing a lot of those process and ideas coming to life as well. So we are not the only one with this idea, and that's why you're here as well. But for the future, as I see, that is really a merge of all of our different capabilities into one, because we need to have more interoperability between each other to make sure that clients are not losing time, both on brands and retailer sites, make everyone lives easier, because the crucial element here is really speed to market, and how to do that is actually to talk between each other. So that's the trend we are seeing. That's the trend we are following. So I'm more than happy that you raised that up, Raoul, because we fully agree at Syndigo.
There you go.
Right. Thank you, Leila and Raoul. Just sort of moving on, taking that one on in terms of the next little block, which was basically looking at how data pools and the syndication element works in practice. Just taking a look at how that data is structured and how the connection's also structured as well. Who wants to start this little block off? Max, is you?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can give you the go.
This one, yeah.
So yeah, again, a difference very much per data pool, how your data is structured. So you cannot say that, for example, GS1 structures data in the same way as, for example, TechDoc. So yeah, it always makes sense to first look at how this data is structured for example, which is provided by a data pool. Furthermore, I think that most PIM vendors, the ones available today, I'm quite sure they can, but others in the field as well, help you out. If you're a retailer or brand owner, or if you're in wholesale, to look at the specific data pool and also at how you as a company want to structure data to do some mapping or some alignments. Sometimes, for example, just to provide an example, sometimes we have clients who say, well, in our industry, we have 1 or 2 data pools, and they very much make use of the standards which is common in our industry. So let's adapt that as a start, also to structure our own data in PIM. But of course, from there on, we want to add some unique data fields or attributes or asset types to our own format. So it's basically, a thing of mapping.
Great, thank you. Actually, it's an interesting discussion which has just been highlighted in terms of the comment section on the site, which is talking about standards, and I guess when standards become the rules, and I think this is a perennial issue within computer science generally, isn't it? Is that, Anna, just on that one, if we just divert slightly on that, I know with your area within furniture of a data pool, is it, I mean, you'd ideally like to be, I guess, the single source and the standard, wouldn't you, within your category? Are these quite tough challenges then?
I think that, I mean, I hear you guys talking about standard, and that's, I think, the most important thing from our solution at Deco Data. Of course, we are creating the single source of truth for furniture data, as in a way that we are using the brand's data. And where you're talking about a product with all kinds of measurements, but also with all kinds of details, I think it is important that everybody is using the same details of that product. But when you are talking about standardizing, of course, in our data lake, we are using a specific data scheme, and we're standardizing all kinds of things within our product, but in a way that it is fully flexible, usable for our customers. So it doesn't matter what kind of custom fields you need, or what kind of data combinations you need, or even if you want to add some extra text based on the attributes that are available in our data lake, we are not standardizing. The furniture business is so fragmented, and it is so complex compared to other markets, I think. Therefore, there is no solution yet worldwide, or no data pool yet worldwide for furniture, and we are the first one. So that is really cool. But on the other hand, it is possible for us to create this due to our technical knowledge and domain knowledge of this market. And I think therefore...
Sorry, Anna, just thinking, I'll ask you while you're on this one. In terms of some of the areas of question you had was in terms of that issue of completedness, how much do you have all the attributes for all the brands, and are there going to be bits which are not necessarily in then? I mean, that it sounds like a challenge, and clearly, if you'll have the same challenge as any other operator of a data pool will have, and then if you're the retailer or the wholesaler taking info from there, have you got everything you ultimately need, or is that a real challenge for a data pool operator?
Well, in the end, we have everything that a brand is providing us, and of course, in the future, I mean, we are also looking at possibilities. You have all kinds of enrichment possibilities, and we are coming back to that later. I mean, you can scrape, you can do all kinds of things, but when you when you focus on the brand data of the products and the collections, I think then you are focusing on like the single source of truth. And I'm saying the single source of truth because they're, for example, in furniture world, there are also replicas or all other kinds of collections available, which is fine. I mean, everybody is doing their own business and jobs. But in the end, when you are a dealer and you have you agreed with a brand that you are allowed to sell a brand, then I think it's important that you have access to the right data and to the data that you are able to have access to. So it's I think it's all about providing and have access to the data that you need for your system.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Yeah, Bral, I was going to say, what's been your experience with your clients over these issues?
No, I think I wanted to go in also in not directly dive into your question, but also going into what Anna was talking about, and what I've seen in the comment section is what do you expect of a brand that they deliver on data? So you can give a brand access to sharing their data in the data pool, but do you say, okay, these are the minimal values that you have to put in? Like, what are the required attributes that you have to put in? Like, and in which standards? I think that was one of the questions: is who is driving those standards? Is it going to be the bigger data pools? Now you see also, and I saw that there was a nice comment as well, is where the bigger players in the market, like the Amazons, the eBays, and they are going to have a bigger role in that as well, because they are basically determining what kind of values or attributes are going to put out there, right? Because they're dragging all of the traffic to their own web shops. So they determine what kind of information is available or is being shown online, and who is going to determine what these standards are. Are it going to be the big e-commerce players, or is it going to be more of the brands as a whole working together with the data pool?
Well, if you're asking the question to me, I would say at the end of the day, the user of the data is, of course, in charge of the data that he is using for the marketplace or the web shop or the other system. I mean, we all know that the companies like Amazon, of course, are having data sheets, or they need data sheets or master sheets or whatever you call them, Excels with attributes with over 150 columns. But there could be smaller niche players who just need a specific attribute that is also necessary. So I think in the end, the people that are using the data for whatever cause or whatever perspective, they decide in the end what data is necessary.
Yeah, Max, I know we've got a specific question for you, which I'll throw at you. If you had an addition first, though, if you want to go.
Yeah, exactly. I also see that question appearing from it. It's the one from David, right?
Yeah, David Goodtree. Yeah.
Which basically contributes to Raoul's previous statement. So, David, your question is is basically saying, okay, when we're looking at US data pools in food, then it's all scattered around. Is there a simple solution for it? Well, I think the answer is no. However, you're also seeing, just like Raoul was saying, for example, here with us in the Benelux, that you see large, brand owners or suppliers starting working together with large retailers, and they are, sitting together, to basically first set an industry standard, and then they say, okay, we're all going to comply to that industry standard, which says something about your data structure, about your data format, about your data quality, enrichments, etc. So as soon as that is supported by larger contributors, then you see that gradually the wheels start to get in motion, and also smaller parties are also jumping on that bandwagon. So that's basically what you see happening. So is there one solution? No. And are you somewhere caught in the middle, for example, as a retailer, which means that, for example, if you're working with, say, maybe 100 different distributors where you're, retrieving your product data from, then, it's of course is of help if the larger ones are all using the same format. But for the ones who are not using that format, well, it's wise to work with a PIM system, which is very flexible in setting specific data mappings per specific distributor or supplier. So
there's also one. I think there's also one great comment in the from Moesel Inan. And he's saying no standards needed anymore, AY magic. And I think that's also something saying about the future and, the future solutions. That is something that we are definitely looking into. I mean, we once created under another name Shazam for furniture products, for example. Well, we all know what Shazam is. I hope it is, using the app for finding out what music you're listening to. And we created that for furniture in an MVP. But it is something that we are looking at, because I do believe that in the future, we're not talking about standards anymore. I think there are all kinds of other ways to create whole new standards.
That's, for example, also initiatives as well. For example, Google recognition, which also based on some AI logic, also provides you with product data. For example, hey, if you import an image of this shirt, for example, it says, hey, it's the type of shirt, the color is dark blue, hey, it's long sleeves, etc. So yeah, that's for future needs. It could
really
definitely be of help. Yeah.
I think the question from Samantha Gershman is possibly a follow-on from what you were discussing there, Max, in terms of this difficulty in terms of which data pools do you use when there's a requirement, I guess, from certain brand owners that as a retailer you have to take their data from certain data pools. I think is pretty much the question Samantha has got.
Yeah, let me briefly look into that question. Yeah, that's also an interesting one.
Yeah.
Well, let me
I'll get your view on this as well, Leah, before we move on to the next block as well, if that's good with you.
Yeah. So Leah answering this one, or
Leah, do you want to chip in? Thank you, Max.
Yeah, sure. So basically, and that's not the issue, but that's the actual process today. The retailer is choosing the single source of truth. In most of the case, a unique single source of truth is not enough. We are talking about data pools. Data pools are quite limited on the number of attributes they can collect and share to the retailers. So each retailer needs to have additional source of information. That's why for some retailers, you can have multiple data pools available. But, and as I defined at the beginning, data pools are supposed to create a common language between brands and retailers. So when we are talking about, and I saw a lot of GS1, GDSN standards, etc., we are all talking the same language. So you can either use one provider, which can be Syndigo, OneWorthing, Salsify. We are talking the same language. So all of those data will be formatted to match all of the needs from the retailers, no matter which one you're using. That's the same. The data will come from those different systems, but at the end, on the retailer side, they will receive the good data anyway, because we as data pools will be in charge of formatting those informations. So when a retailer is saying to you, you need to select, okay, only OneWorthing or only Syndigo or only Salsify. If we are talking about a common language of data, that's not the case. You can choose the one that you want. Then if we are talking about additional information, enrichment that are retailer specific, this is where you will probably have no choice to select the provider that the retailer wants you to use. And that's the limit here. And that's why we all try on our models, can be PIM, can be data syndication providers, data pools. We are all trying to be exclusive to each of those retailers. But at the end, it's really the brands and the retailers that are seeing the limits of this model. And more, we are coming to interoperability between each other. Because those limits are going too far today. You cannot have, as a brand, 10 different providers for 10 different type of attributes, or even the same type of attributes across those 10 different providers. There is no consistency here. You are not even aware of the data quality you are sharing with your retailers and at the end, the shoppers. So that's why we are trying to consolidate everything. So the topic is a reality. I will not lie. That's a reality for all of us. And no matter the type of product you are selling, it's less common into the food service area. But again, it depends on the countries. When you go to Europe, there is a unique format, which will be the GDSN one. Outside of Europe, you have thousands of different formats because each of the retailers wants to have their own data, which will be the same. It's just because they're not talking between each other, which is silly, right? Just a round table, discuss on the type of data each of them are collecting, try to cross all of those data and create a unique model. This is why we have at least the GS1 organization is developing this global data model, which is not GDSN, it's global data model. Know what type of data is expecting by who and when. That's that simple. But right now we are not at this stage on into the discussions. So the topic is here, but for the future and the synergy that we are seeing today is to have really a combination between our systems in order to not have you subscribe to everyone, but just subscribe to the one that you want to work with.
Great, thank you, Leah. Actually, before we move on to the next block, which actually touches on a question we've got from Venkatesh Ganasan, which is looking at the automotive industry. The next little section, we're going to look at some of the differentiation between the different categories, product categories, and we'll get your views, Anna, in terms of what that looks like for the furniture industry. But just before then, it's been referenced quite often, the enrichment of the data. How variable is that richness of the different data within different data pools? And what are we talking about? Some it might just be one image, no images, or we're looking at video, 360-degree pictures, AR models. What does it look like? And is there a great variance between the different data pools and within different categories?
Yeah, there is.
I think we all have our own definition of enrichment of data.
Yeah.
What's it, Anna? Just seeing as you're close to that furniture one, what's it look like to you in your sector there?
Yeah, well, you already mentioned many ways of enrichment, but I would go even further than that. If you even, for example, when you have AI solutions and when you are scraping the internet, I mean, you can combine everything. I mean, everything is enrichment, and you're not only talking about 360 videos, 3D, 1D, or whatever. I mean, 1D is not existing, but you know what I mean. There is there are so many. But enrichment goes very far. And for one company, enrichment can be like adding extra combinations in texts, for example, emojis, or on smaller in a smaller way. But for another company, videos are always needed, and how do you say, the explanation letters, how you have to create a piece of furniture, or where it comes from, and from which country, or let's say certificates, and the footprint on the whole world, with how it affects us. So enrichment comes in so many variations, based on what is available via brands, but also what is available via the internet and the knowledge that is throughout in the world.
Thank you, Anna. Raoul, you got anything to add in terms of that enrichment question?
Yeah, I think so. I think where it comes back to is basically the enrichment that's required, especially that the brands have to put in or is going to put in, is what the consumer expects of it when it shops online or when it's opened like a physical catalog, if that still exists. But that's basically what the brands are doing. I think if you take fashion, the fashion is, I think maybe it's a point coming up, but fashion is different.
We can go into that now, Raoul. Yeah, if we can roll onto that now if you like.
Yeah, but it's more like if you're looking at the really easy online consumer verticals like fashion, there you see where the brands are taking full control of their own content, right? So let's say for Nike, all images used online are Nike made themselves. They don't want retailers to shoot their own pictures of their brand stuff, because they want to have full control of everything that goes out there, because it's building their brand. And what you see now where fashion is what it's doing with the direct to consumer market, you will also see now that the others will follow. And I do believe that also what you see now with taking brand ownership or content ownership from the brands itself, that's something that will follow out throughout the whole rest of all the verticals are going in there. So I saw something about automotive. I'm not really experienced in that, but I can imagine that also they're going to take, the brands are going to take control, and basically what they're going to push into the data pools is, in the end, what are the consumers expecting on the content wide, and that's going to change from year to year, especially now with the corona pandemic, but also with the environment. So there's more stuff that we're going to add to all those data pools, because the consumers are expecting or making decisions, buying a product based on the information that's put out there. So I think that's
is interesting. That is interesting, because when you are talking about enrichment, I mean, our experience based on from other companies is that, for example, a brand is always having a certain product in a certain style, especially in furniture. But when you look at the Instagram or any other social platforms, Pinterest, you see that specific product in all different styles. So that means a brand can push towards some style or a brand identity or whatsoever, but in the end, the consumer or the influencer or whatever becomes more important. So enrichment on one hand, of course, through a brand and the brand's wishes and the brand's identity. I mean, in the end, if a consumer and a typical influencer has such a huge impact on the target audience, I also believe that, well, in our case, let's say, it could be possible that part of our data lake or data pool has also access to these kinds of possibilities of showing the brand in all kinds of different perspectives. So that is what I also believe, that the current way of thinking about data pools or data lake is also a bit changing, because, of course, we also need to adapt and we need to understand how, in the end, the consumers, what they want to be offered in all kinds of online shops or whatsoever.
Great, thank you, Anna and Raoul. I guess we could talk for a couple of weeks on the brand versus the retailer issue, couldn't we, on that one? So thanks for bringing the Nike up, Raoul. I know I'm going to have to go to Max first because he's had his hand up for a long time.
Sure.
Yeah. Just politely waiting. So coming back to your initial question, Glenn. It's also fun that you have also certain industries where you have multiple data pools. And then, of course, there's, competition between them. So, for example, in electronics, you have CNET, but you also have iSCAD. There, of course, you have retailers who basically shop around, who say from, hey, I want to use both data pools. And then, for example, say, hey, in the category television sets, well, it's best to use, for example, the specifications of iSCAD, but I want to work with image set provided for CNET. And, maybe in another category, it's the other way around. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
It's also interesting to see. So you also see a trend of, more data pools arising. So also more, opportunities arise within a certain industry.
Great. Thank you, Max. Leah, you wanted to come in then?
Yeah, I just have one comment here. We are talking about data pools enriching the data, but on the other hand, we need to have the retailers receiving and ingest those data to actually have those augmented reality images, etc., etc. This is a limitation that I want to raise, because if we are ready, maybe they are not. And that's two completely different words. We can send any type of data if at the end, the endpoint is not actually ingesting this data and using it on websites or internet application, it's worthless, right? And that's why I have a slightly different definition of rich data, rich content. And if I can take the Amazon example, I will mention A+. It's going beyond the actual classic core content attributes that are always at the top of the page. You, by scrolling down, can have additional information coming from the brand with no limitation. So it can be images, it can be product descriptions. So going beyond the classic elements that the retailers are receiving, right? This is not how the brands can make the difference today. More using A+, rich content. So by sending that via HTML, JavaScript, or direct platforms, there is a lot of different ways existing today, but we need to be aware of, okay, we want to improve data, we want to enrich data, always create new content, having more information. But then the recipients, the distributors, the marketplace need to receive and ingest those information and use it, actually. And maybe they're not ready. Some are really mature. Amazon is really mature. They already have Vendor Central, Seller Central in place, direct APIs, AFS 2.0. There is a lot going on. But Amazon is a huge marketplace. Others are not ready. So we can be prepared. We will be here. But on the brand side, it's painful because they always need to improve things again, and again. And they are not actually sure if the effort they are putting into improving everything will be used and seen by the shopper directly. So slightly different opinion about rich content and definition, because improving the core content is one piece, but actually showcase brand content and product content by adding more information as a white page, for example, is also rich content. So there is, it's my opinion, of course.
Great, thank you, Leah. I mean, we're just aware of the time, just moving on to the last little block, which I guess touches onto that enrichment thing as well, just future developments in terms of rich media, whether that is 3D or AR, how that's affecting the market. And I'm just interested, Raoul, your point really, in terms of the fact Nike wants to control what's going out. Could that be actually a limiting element, really, if actually the retailers really want to do something more with it and are looking at using some of these new forms of conveying the messaging, whether that's 3D or augmented reality? How do you see that developing there? Because it sounds like obviously Nike is particularly big and powerful. It might be in a better position than most brand owners, but I'm just wondering how that as an element in terms of where the market might progress for data pools.
Yeah, I think it will differ. I think Nike is an outlier, right? And I think fashion is an outlier if you talk about, especially if you talk about the data pools and the enrichment of data, because it's such a separate vertical, separated from the rest. But I think it will progress. You see the e-commerce, especially in Europe and the US, you see it mature. Very quickly, you see the adding of the augmented reality, the 3D videos, but the 3D videos, 3D images and stuff like that. That's going to be a bigger and bigger part of it. But again, I come back to one of my earlier points I made. I think also a lot of the data pools still have to make big steps on their own IT infrastructure, where it's easier to put that data in. And also it's easy to retrieve the data. That's one. But I think there is maybe a bigger way to go for the brands. What we see is a lot of brands that have to distribute the data are still sending out Excel sheets, are still sending out even Word documents or just emails with some data in there. And then the retailers are just trying to figure out how to get that into a PIM system or an e-commerce system. So I think we still have a long ways to go, depending on a lot of different verticals. But it's if you don't get caught up quick, you're gonna get left behind, and you're gonna make it really hard. But I think 3D, AR, AI is coming, and it's going to be a big part of it as well. Yeah.
It's all about the metaverse, right?
No, not that. with about 5 minutes to go, no, we're not going down there. Thank you. Actually, thank you. On this, David's just diverting slightly. David Guttrie's question, which is saying that actually we've centered the conversation quite a lot on retailers requiring data pools. I know, Anna, from a previous conversation, you were saying about it's not just all about e-commerce and retailers. And David makes the point, actually, there are all these other channels to market, I guess we could call them, that might well be requiring the data. Is that been taken into account by the data pools, whereby they are providing the relevant data, but not just for the retail and wholesaler industry? Is that, Leah, do you or Anna? I know we did reference this, didn't we? Whichever of you wants to say a few words on this one.
Yeah, sure. So of course, all of those food applications, etc. Fitbit, for example, is like perfect example. When you're using a Fitbit, you want to scan your product to actually see the calories that you have ingested and make sure that you're okay for the day. All of those applications, and I will speak for Syndigo, for us internally, we consider them as retailers or recipients. It's a dedicated channel on our side. So it's working basically the same as any external point. From them, we receive requirement sets, all list of elements they want to receive from the brands, and then we send that to the correct format, and they ingest that back into their PIM system. So on the paper, they're not really different from a classic retailer/marketplace offering. They're just additional ways for the shopper, for a customer like myself, to see product content, but the product content still needs to come from somewhere, and the how is integrated, how is displayed, etc. is basically working the same as all retailers and marketplaces around the world. So that's why I think we did not mention directly application, because it's most common to say it's a retailer on our side and on our PIM words than application, because we are working the same for those applications, market researcher, etc., etc., is basically working the same. They need data. We provide data based on their standards. We know what they want to receive. We know the format that they want to receive. So we are making the transformations. And on the brand side it's like any other channel, but they are crucial because marketplace is like the first way to purchase product today, but the application to actually get information around the product before actually purchase the product or raising already have. So they are at the middle of all of our discussions. They are here. We are sending them data, but on the paper, it's like any other type of channels.
Right. Thank you, Leah. Another thing in terms of the way things are going, I think Anna, you've referenced in terms of the fact it would be good to have, say, feedback on products from the end customer for retailers and brands in order that the master data can be improved in the data pool. I guess that's something that's not done. I assume that's not the case. It's not been done at the moment. And also, I guess that would certainly help the relationship, wouldn't it, between the different parties who are all involved in this, which, David just highlighted some of them and Leia's just referenced them as well. What's your view in terms of how the feedback bit from the end customer could enhance?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting. I mean, but as Raoul mentioned, all brands are now also going direct to consumer. And I think consumer feedback is essential when you are, creating a brand and you want to make sure that your brand is here in 5 to 10 years as well. I mean, the world is changing so rapidly. It's not as like, let's say, 30 or 40 years ago that things stayed for a longer period. So in the end, I think it is very important to listen to the end customers as well and make sure that you adapt constantly.
Great. Thank you, Anna. And just in the last couple of minutes, I guess, Max, in terms of how do you see things developing in terms of the market for data pools? What's the developments you see on the near-term horizon?
Well, I think it very much depends on the industry. For example, look at Anna. How long is your data pool now active? Is it about 2 years, right?
No, it's the data pool went live in January this year.
Okay, so and you're saying you're the only one in the world, so which definitely reflects my saying. You have some industries, who covered quite some ground already, and are looking, for example, at expansion to different markets, to spread the word and try to become an industry standard. You see that happening, of course. You see markets which are, really not so much developed, or industries, and they're trying, to set their first steps towards a data pool. So quite some differences. However, you can see, of course, trends that everybody tries to make syndication of data and distribution of data from a data pool and out and from a data pool to, for example, parties who are using the data or parties who are delivering data to the data pool. Much more easier. So it's definitely, you see, stuff like that streaming data becomes makes this introduction into data pools, making life easier for everybody. So technology changes and updates. Some IE might help, as discussed previously. But again, I think it very much depends on the maturity of an industry.
Thank you, Max. I think, if I may, you're completely right, because the furniture industry, of course, electronics is very mature, fashion is already very mature, but everybody knows that the furniture industry lags, 5 or 10 years behind. So I think it's now time for this industry. And Corona affected us all, but if there is one industry that is really that it had a positive boost when you look at automation, digitalization, then for the furniture industry, there was a positive side on this, because now people are fully aware how important that is towards the future. And there are a lot of examples of brands who did not adapt in time, and other brands that understood the whole whole new play field when you look into automation and digitalization and data, and how important it is to have everything in place. And well, I can write books about it, and I think in the end this is the momentum for lots of different markets, and furniture is one of them.
Thank you very much, Anna. I'm just aware of the time, and it sort of ticked by, and I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap things up. Certainly this part of the roundtable anyway, I'm afraid. Hopefully we've answered some of the questions that came through, and I know we've missed some, partly by the fact I couldn't understand them, but others I was hoping we covered most of them off in the conversation anyway. So thank you all for contributing those questions. As I say, thank you very much to the panel, and also to PIM vendors for putting this on and for inviting me to chair this one. I know it's part of an ongoing series, so hopefully I'll see you again in the future. And on that note, I'll say au revoir, and I will hand you back over to Stefan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Stefan, you're muted. Yeah, Stefan, you're muted.
All right, so now you can hear me. Thanks. No, I hope that everyone had a very engaging,
but also freezed,
and very engaging session. I hope everyone can still hear me, even though I am frozen for some people. But no, I really enjoyed the interaction with the audience, and I wanted to invite you all to move to the booths, to the expo part. There you can cover all the questions that you still have, and find the answers for the audience, find the answers for the organizations and the speakers that you might still want to ask them. Every vendor has a booth. You can find that in the left-hand side on the expo part. We'll give all the speakers 3 minutes to move from the speaker area of the event to the booth area, and then just wait a few minutes for them to start up their sessions. If you have any questions there on mapping data with AI, connecting to data pools, syndicating your product data to all kinds of different output sources, definitely check in with them and ask all your questions. I want to thank the panel. I want to thank Glyn specifically for hosting this amazing session again. And I want to invite all the audience members to visit us on the 30th of November, so in 2 weeks, on Tuesday, where we meet up again with Glyn to discuss headless commerce and headless PIM in a headless environment. Again, a new an interactive session on a very hot topic right now. If you're still looking for a product information management solution, you can visit our site, www.pimvendors.com. There we can help you with an independent shortlist for all the PIM solutions. And we also help you with different free tools, such as a free cost indication tool. With that being said, I hope to see you all in 2 weeks. Visit us online or see you all in the Q&A sessions after this session has ended. See you all.